Greetings, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Metal Command Podcast. Tony here with you, and today I am here to talk about Fear Factory, and I'm here to talk about why, even though they did change singers with a more unknown guy by the name of Milo Silvestro, that I still think they are going to put out a pretty strong album next time out. So, obviously, as some of you may or may not know, Fear Factory replaced Burton C. Bell with a guy by the name of Milo Silvestro. Now, some of you may have heard his cover of one of their songs a few years ago on YouTube. I actually remember listening to it before, and it was actually pretty good, by the way. And of course, when you change singers and you basically replace a guy like Burton Bell, who has over a 30-plus year history with the band, well, you're going to have a lot of fans that may go into a panic, or they will be skeptical about what the next album will sound like. And folks, I'll be honest with you, I don't think Fear Factory is going to miss a beat when they finally release the follow-up to Aggression Continuum, whenever that happens in the future. So why do I think this? And I'm going to put some things into perspective for all of you to let you know why I'm thinking the way I am and why I am still pretty optimistic they're going to put out an amazing record. Before I get into that, though, if you do like what you see and hear on this podcast, please hit the subscribe button and hit that little bell to be notified anytime I do post a video. Also, leave a comment. I'm curious as to what you all think. Do you think that the next Fear Factory album will be good? Do you like the acquisition of a newer singer, especially a guy that's not very well known? And, of course, like the video if you like what I talk about today. So, with that being said, let me start off with this. Take a look at the band's history, for example. So, I'm going to go back to the 90s. Demanufacture, Soul of a New Machine, Obsolete. I mean, Fear Factory, in my opinion, I grew up with this band. This was a band I listened to a lot in high school. And I loved Demanufacture. And Obsolete is an amazing record, really well written, really well done, really well produced. And it was actually the first Fear Factory album that was released when I started my radio show. So, Roadrunner was sending me that album. And of course, I interviewed Burton for the first time in 1998 or 99. I don't remember what year it was, but it was the late 90s. Anyway, to make a long story short, they had Digimortal, which, I know some fans don't like. It really isn't as bad as people say it is. But obviously, Dino Cazares was out of the band after that album. And then, of course, Burton resurrected the band with Archetype. And then, of course, there was an album after that as well, where Dino was not in the band. Now, of course, as we all know, Dino came back with the Mechanize album, and the band hasn't missed a beat since. So, for me, when I go back and look at those records, to me, the two weakest albums in the band's catalog, two of the weakest albums in their catalog, are the ones that Dino Cazares was not a part of. Okay. And I think about that because when he came back and they came out with Mechanize, man, the band really found itself again. And in my opinion, ever since then, ever since that happened, the band to me has not missed a beat at all. I mean, every album they've put out since then has been pretty flawless. And the album Aggression Continuum, which I believe was recorded a few years ago now, one of the best albums they've ever put out. In fact, I'd probably say it's in my top 2 or 3 in the Fear Factory catalog. So obviously, no Dino, the band took a huge step back. And even though Archetype is a pretty good album, there was something definitely missing without Dino in the band. I mean, there were some pretty good songs on it, but to me, those albums, while Dino was gone, are definitely not at the level that the band was at in the 90s or from Mechanize onward. So that's the first thing. So he had a huge influence on making this band sound great. And I still think to this day, he was like the missing element that needed to come back. And I believe that his presence alone is going to make that album very, very good. Now, the new singer. Let me first go back to a lot of the lawsuits, because they had a whole bunch of lawsuits. There's a lot of articles about them. I'm not going to get into those lawsuits in detail because there are plenty of articles, plenty of interviews where those things are talked about. But essentially, Burton pretty much up and quit, said, screw it, I'm done. And I can kind of understand that. You get burned out, and the music industry itself is pretty tough. But then when you have to fork out an insane amount of money to people that filed a lawsuit against you, unfortunately, that may leave a bitter taste in your mouth. So I can understand why he would quit and maybe feel, you know what, I need a change in my life. I've been doing this 30 plus years, and this is where it got me, and I'm done. Totally get that. Dino Cazares, on the other hand, he decided, you know what? Screw the lawsuits. Screw what happened in the past. I'm going to move forward. To me, I have a lot of respect for guys like that, because when you have that kind of attitude, you are going to have the drive and determination to really make your next album amazing. As even, because look, you had all these lawsuits, then you lost the singer who you have a great, and granted, Dino and Burton have an amazing musical chemistry together. I don't know what their relationship is like. That's not really for me to get into, but regardless of whatever it is, whether they love each other or hate each other, the musical chemistry between both of those guys is there. And losing that, again, I understand why it makes fans skeptical. But the fact that he has a can-do attitude, he's going to move forward and with a different singer and keep the band going, I think is commendable, and I'm really excited and happy that he's doing that. Now on to the next thing, the vocalist. And, the biggest criticism about this, I listened to this guy sing. I think the cover that he did sounds very, very good. I think vocally he has the capabilities, obviously, to, make this band sound good live and on the album whenever that does come out. Now, they auditioned quite a few people. And yeah, there was this big countdown to when, they were going to reveal the name. To me, I couldn't have cared less about that. All I care about is, are you going to put a good album out or not? I don't care who the singer is, as long as he's good. I don't care how well known he is. I don't care if I've never heard of him before, which I'd never heard of Milo Silvestro before. Is the album going to be good? That's all I care about. And the one thing I like about picking an unknown singer after all of the people that had auditioned for this is that instead of going for a more well-known guy, because a lot of bands, what they'll do is they will go for a more well-known singer or a guy that has more of a name in the business, because they're afraid if they don't, they won't sell a lot of albums. A lot of bands fall into that rut, which is why you see so many vocalists in the heavy metal scene basically get recycled through so many different bands out there. It happens a lot. There's some vocalists, that are out there. You're like, oh, he sings on with this band now. And they've been in like 20 bands, 10 bands, whatever. Dino went, instead of going for a name guy, he went for what he felt was the right guy. And I think that's really, really important, especially if you're going to continue with, not having a lot of changes, not having a lot of lineup changes. Because when you have guys that have been in tons of different bands, you are prone to those guys leaving, coming and going into the band and having this turnover. And then the band starts to lack some continuity within it. So I like the fact he went with a more unknown guy. Vocally, he definitely has it. I think he sounds very, very good. There's some fans that don't like it. I don't really see much of a difference between him and Burton, to be honest with you. But it's really going to matter what kind of chemistry musically Dino has with this guy, which to me, you're not going to pick a dude and go through all of those people and settle on and just to settle on somebody. I think he went out to really find the right guy. And that's what I like about it. Whether he's known or whether he's unknown, he didn't care. He brought a guy into the band that he felt was going to make the band sound very, very good. And again, this goes back into that can-do mentality, that leadership mentality that Dino is displaying after all the crap that he's just gone through. So a lot of these things are the reasons why I think this new album by Fear Factory is going to probably be pretty good, and they really aren't going to miss much of a beat on the next album. I think Dino has the vision. I think he has the determination to make it sound good. And honestly, as a Fear Factory fan, I'm not skeptical. I'm pretty optimistic. So with that, folks, thanks for watching. Let me know what you think in the comments. I'll talk to you soon.